Hi everybody, what's going on? So welcome to my first podcast. We're going to be talking about some interesting things today. First off, I haven't made a video in a while. I'm working on doing that. So what I want to talk about today is, there's going to be a lot of different things we discuss in my podcast. First thing I want to talk about is, let's talk about some political stuff. Everyone's favorite topic, right? Yeah. Actually, you know what? I'll start off with some new material that I've been working on. You heard it here first. I was thinking about the different sex scandals that have happened in the White House throughout history. And when you think of a sex scandal or affairs, the biggest thing the most prominent one people usually think of is Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. And I was thinking, well, there were other scandals out there. There were other scandals. Affairs that took place. I think one of the biggest ones besides Clinton and Monica Lewinsky was, JFK and Marilyn Monroe. Okay, JFK had an affair with Marilyn Monroe. Okay, JFK had an affair with Marilyn Monroe. Okay, Clinton had an affair with Monica Lewinsky. Okay, way to go, Bill. You had an affair with the one Jewish broad who couldn't get a stain out, and JFK had fucking Marilyn Monroe. So deal with that, Clinton, okay? I did not have sex with that woman. Oh, probably not. You're right, Bill. You're probably right. She probably felt bad for you. That's terrible. That's terrible. I mean, I'm a horrible human being for that. I was about 3 when the whole sex scandal in the White House actually happened. So obviously I didn't really know much about it until I got older. And I do know that there was that whole, what is your definition of is? And I'm like, what? If I was a reporter and I heard him ask for that, I would be like, Mr. Clinton, why are you asking such a simple remedial question? And then, oh yeah, I forgot. Public education in Arkansas. That's why. That's exactly why he had to ask you what the definition of is. What the fuck, Bill? It's. I can't fucking explain it either, but you know what it means. It's bullshit. So yeah, that's new material I'm working on. 2-decade-old. Oh fuck, almost. Was it almost 30 years old? And it's still funny to this day. Oh man. So let's talk about a couple things. I want to kind of for a minute briefly discuss. I can't fucking talk today. I want to talk about higher education. Now I'd like to preface this by first off saying I'm not a political science. Maybe I'm not a political analyst. I'm not going to claim to know everything about how higher education and taxes and all that and finances and all that shit works, but I feel like I have a pretty decent grasp on it. So basically, here's my problem with higher education. There's a stigma in society. I really believe there is, and for those of you who disagree, get that out of your fucking head right now, okay? Pull your head out of your ass, step out from under the rock you've been living under for however long, and just realize that you're wrong. And I'm not saying that to be, an ass or a prick or anything like that, but I think that you have to be consciously blocking this knowledge of the stigmas in higher education. And let me explain what I mean by that. So here's what I mean. There is a stigma that if you go to, a regular public high school, and you get your education, let's say you're top of your class, let's say you're valedictorian, and let's say you go to an inner city school, a school that for the most part, for the most part the school has, terrible scores and all that. You may be at the top, okay? You may have the exact same scores on your ACTs or SATs as someone who went to a very expensive private high school, in the suburbs of Los Angeles or something like that. But the thing is that inherently, if you apply for a scholarship or a job at a high school, they're going to look at your transcript and go, wow, you were really, really, really phenomenal when it came to your, your studies, your education. I mean, you did a fantastic job. You were top of your class, but you were the top of your class in a school with horrible test scores. A school that we consider to be, subpar. But then somebody who has the exact same test scores on the SAT, ACT, on paper is just as intelligent as you are, comes in and applies for the same job or applies for the same scholarship, who went to, a premier private high school, they're going to probably get that job. Now, I'm not saying always. That's not the case. But I think there is a stigma on there. And that carries right over into college. For the most part in this country, education is free. Up until, for the most part, with a few exceptions, until you get to the college level. And when you get to the collegiate level, like I said, it carries over. You could have two candidates applying for a job at a business, and one of those candidates, their mom or dad spent a couple $100,000 on education at Princeton, Harvard, Stanford, Dartmouth, USC, a very prestigious university, while another candidate who's just as well qualified went to a 4-year university and somewhere in the Midwest. They're going to probably give the opportunity to the person who spent the more money in education. And I'll be as frank as I possibly can. That's bullshit, okay? Complete and total bullshit. And here's why. The amount of money you spend on an education does not determine your qualifications for a job, okay? At least it shouldn't. Yes, there are some schools that are underfunded. And because those schools are underfunded, what ends up happening is you don't have the same opportunities. You're not going to get, a teacher who is well qualified. You may not get a decent student to teacher ratio. One educator for 75, 80 kids. And in college, yes, you have lecture halls and there's a lot of students there, but at the same time, they may, you're not going to, most universities are not going to pay, a professor decent money if they're going to be teaching at a university where historically the, overall performance of the university is subpar compared to, a very prestigious university. And second of all, I think it's fucked that in this day and age, higher education costs so much. I think the premise is, and I love the internet because the internet brings me happy joy to my spirit, makes me laugh. There was a picture floating around on Facebook the other day I saw, and it was a picture of Cat Williams with this bewildered look on his face. I can't remember exactly what it was worded as, but it said something like, you get, basically, you pay to go to school, and you're in debt to get an education, to then get a job to pay to get out of debt, or something along those lines. So basically, it was perpetuating this stigma of constant debt. I mean, you're going to be paying off student loans forever. Now, ultimately, the goal is to, deal with your student loans, deal with your student debt, bust your ass in college, prepare for life, get a good job, and then, ideally one day you can just cut a check, one singular check, and send it off and be done with your student loans. And that would be a fantastic feeling. And there are many people who do that. And to those people, I think that they're very blessed. They've been given a great opportunity to, be successful. There's a lot of people who don't have that success, or not as fortunate. And I don't like that. I don't like that in this country. We make the opportunity more challenging than it needs to be to succeed. Because yes, going through college and doing your best to study and hopefully not get tied up in binge drinking and sex and alcohol and drugs and all that shit. That's tough. A lot of students do that. But, I mean, I feel very strongly that we're making it more challenging than it needs to be. I think I have a theory. And to anyone listening to this, if you disagree with my theory, I'm not gonna disrespect your opinions on the matter. I'm not, because that's the great thing about living in a society like we do today, is that we are all entitled to our opinions based on our experiences and our personal knowledge of the events around us. But I will respectfully state my argument. I think there's a lot of people out there who would disagree with that. That we're making it more difficult than it needs to be. Now, here's my theory. So my theory is that the best way to boost the economy is to get more people into the workforce. Get more people into steady, stable jobs. More young people into a steady, stable job that is going to allow them the opportunity to make a decent wage and contribute to society. Somebody is making a decent salary a year. What are they going to do? They're going to pour that money into the economy. They're going to buy a home. They're going to pay their bills. They're going to take vacations. They're going to buy groceries. They're going to buy a new car. They're going to put money back into the economy. And I think if you really truly wanted to boost the economy even more, you would allow more students, more people who are wanting to actually better themselves by getting a higher education at a university, the opportunity to do so, without having to worry about how am I going to pay for this. Okay, I think that's very, very messed up. I think it's a whole fucked up situation. Now, some people know this to be true. I myself know this to be true as well. Primarily, what is typically used to boost the economy, and it's been proven throughout history, war. War is a great opportunity for people to help boost the economy, make money. There were people in World War II who made a tremendous amount of money by investing. When people were selling their stocks dirt cheap, because it didn't look like we were going to win. I thought Hitler was going to win, and they were very optimistic, and they bought up stocks that were dirt cheap. And then after the war ended, then they took the money and they invested it in countries that were destroyed. Japan, and then in the 80s when Japan began to boom, would invest, sell their stocks, and cash in. So I mean, there are people who make their money in extreme times of pessimism, and that's smart. And smart people like that do exist, and they do know how to make the best out of a terrible situation. Now, there are lots of people who are in a terrible situation right now, and that terrible situation is not being able to figure out how they can afford a higher education when they genuinely want one. Not everyone's going to want a higher education, okay? Not everyone is going to want to go to college or better themselves. But there's a big number of people who do and simply can't. Or they begin college, and due to unforeseen circumstances, family emergencies, personal issues that prevent them from being able to continue their education, or being think of it this way, a single mom trying to put herself through college and it's not getting any support, having to go to school at night, work 1 or 2 jobs to take care of herself and her child. Think of how much better that would make it for that woman if she didn't have that additional stress of going, well, I have to work these jobs because I have to provide for myself, my child, and pay for my education. Now, yes, there are ways around it, yes, financial aid, but the bottom line is that all throughout the world, there are countries where higher education is not as expensive or is, free. And I just, it baffles me that in this country that's something that we adopted. I kind of feel like money itself is just, it's a social construct. Okay, we don't need money in society. We don't. You could just as easily keep your lights on and your power on without money. Okay? That cable company, that energy company, they don't necessarily need to have your money to keep your lights on. Okay? They could easily keep it on. They could easily keep your power on for your fridge. Keep the power on for lights in your home. Keep the heat on in the winter. But, we as a society have determined many years ago that we've got to, regulate things and have money to spend. And I think that's bullshit. Now, yes, obviously, I'm describing a utopia where nobody has to use money to do basically nobody needs money or all that. We go back to a barter system, but at the same time, you have to think about the fact that, I would not consider myself a conspiracy theorist. I wouldn't consider myself one of those people who's just like, the government, doomsday and all that shit. But I think there are a lot of very interesting things behind that kind of stuff. One of them is basically the fact that people inherently, I feel inherently, are opportunistic beings. I think we are, for the most part. Not everyone, but I think as a species, as human beings, we want to look for an opportunity to benefit ourselves. And somewhere along the line, throughout history, someone said, I want to take my knowledge, my wisdom, and teach it to young people, students, so that they can benefit from my wisdom. But, just like the old adage goes, if you're good at something, never do it for free. Easily, you could pass that knowledge on without getting anything in return. Or at least, instead of getting money, it could be, the return of, I provided you with my knowledge. I've shared something with you, and now you can then take that and use it to better yourself, And I just don't think that's, I don't buy into the fact that an education should cost $200,000. I just don't. I firmly believe that you're not paying necessarily for the education. Yes, $200,000 education, you're going to get some excellent professors. You're going to get some excellent resources. That's absolutely true. But I think that same opportunity, that same level of education, that same level, that same standard should be given to anyone who's willing to, show up to class, sit down and study and learn and absorb that knowledge. I'm going to give you a great example. I did a year and a half at community college, and some personal family issues happened, and because of that, I had to take some time off. And I just recently went to go back because I was in a place where I was like, okay, I'm good now. I can go back. I've got all my personal family matters taken care of, and I got fucked because I had other financial responsibilities, and I had to make the difficult decision of weighing the pros and the cons. Going, okay, pay my student loans, pay for bills, pay for all sorts of other stuff that I was financially obligated to pay, and now I have to wait until I can sort that out. And I don't find that fair. And a lot of people may hear me go, well, that's just because you weren't planning appropriately. And yeah, yes, I should have planned better, but there are many limitations on that, okay? There are many limitations as to what you have to make decisions in life, okay? But I think it's like nobody should have to choose between, paying for their education or keeping their lights on, or, putting food on the table, or putting gas in the car, okay? The bottom line is that if you want to actively seek to better yourself by getting a higher education, you should be allowed to. And that's one of the reasons I kind of like Bernie Sanders. I'm not affiliated with any political party. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not, I'm unaffiliated. I will vote for the candidate who who my personal beliefs align with. And I'm kind of torn. I love the idea that Mr. Bernie Sanders is very, very focused on education reform and education cost. I think it's very important. And I know there's some issues that I agree with Mr. Trump about as well. But I mean, for me personally, I mean, I don't know who I'm going to vote for in the election. I don't even know if I am going to vote. And a lot of people say, well, you should vote. And I mean, yes, I mean, you should let your voice be heard at the polls. But at the same time, I mean, I don't know enough about it to readily make a, what I would deem to be an accurate statement. But I do think that, in essence, voting is initially designed to let the people speak, give the people a voice. And I think that it's about time that we had, a candidate who is looking at the big picture, and that's higher education. So I really do. I think higher education is very important, and I think that we need to focus on that, because we have to look at the future. We have to realize that our youth, kids my age, their 20s and 30s, well, mid-20s to late 20s, and my kids are going to have to be looked at as assets, as an investment for society. And if we can't provide them with the opportunities that they need to better themselves, we've fucked ourselves as a society. Now again, yeah, I mean, there's gonna be lots of people who disagree with my statements, and and like I said, I mean, that's completely within your right, and I respect your opinions, because we all are. Here's what I have to say about other people's opinions. Your opinions may not align with mine. My opinions may not align with yours. But the beauty is that we have the opportunity to share our opinions and express our point of views, and have the ability to argue our discussions and our beliefs in a civilized manner. Not this fucked up bullshit YouTube, LOL, fag, LOL, you're a dumb shit, LOL, get off the internet, go fucking shoot yourself, that kind of shit. That's negative. Okay, that's some negative shit that does not need to happen. It needs to be civilized and discussed, so that we can take the other person's opinion on topics like higher education and go, hey, look, I can see your point. I respect your opinion. This is where I'm coming from. This is what I believe. And if you can't see my opinion, that's fine. But we've just had a dialogue, and you may have heard something from me that you can then take and think on and go, well, that makes sense. And you may have said something that I can do the exact same with. Now, we may never fully agree, but that's what discussion does. It gets people to think. And I feel like it doesn't happen enough in society. I feel like any argument that's ever had in the last, I'd say, decade, almost 20 years, starting in the 2000 presidential election, has never been a valid, legitimate political debate. I feel it's always been personal attacks. I mean, personal attacks on the other I mean, that's schoolyard bully shit. Okay, and we need to stop that. We need to rise above and realize that we as people have to just accept that, yeah, not everyone's going to agree with our opinions, and if you don't like it, right, well, fine, fuck you, it's cool, I get it. I get it. It's no big deal. You don't agree with me, I don't agree with you, it's fine. But guess what? We had a chance to sit down and discuss it. And I mean, it's one of those things that it's very difficult to wrap your mind around sometimes. But in closing of this inaugural podcast, I just want to say that I do believe that higher education should be reduced or free. I think that there is enough money floating around to allow us to do so. But again, I can see the argument against. I can see the argument. Well, yeah, but if you're not going to pay for education, how are these teachers going to feed their family? I mean, I get it. You pay for higher education. That money goes to the university. That university then takes the money, divvies it up, and pays for pays the professors, faculty, and all that. And I get that, but I think that sometimes it is a bit excessive. And I just wish that we would work harder on finding a solution to mitigating that. I do want to thank you guys for listening to this podcast. I appreciate that very much. I'm working on hopefully doing another video. I've been very, very busy, and the reason I started doing the podcast was because I could still discuss topics. I'll be honest, being a little bit lazy, because for the podcast I just record my audio, copy paste, and we're good. I do hope to make more videos in the near future. Just a lot of stuff going on. But yeah, I wanted to discuss that, something that's kind of been weighing on my mind for a while. So I do want to thank you for listening. I hope to catch you guys again very, very soon, and to discuss more topics. And I certainly do appreciate the support. Leave your comments below and let me know what you think. And I'll catch you next time.